Here's something I've been meaning to talk about for a bit. Voidspire Tactics. Yeah, I'm looking at a tactical RPG, or strategy RPG. When it comes to CRPGs, SRPGs, and TRPGs, I can't really tell the difference between them. But I was playing through a lot of different ones in preparation to this. I've been going through the Avernum games, playing Fire Emblem until I remember I don't actually like Fire Emblem, replayed through Shining Force 2, some Advance Wars stuff. There are some other games I wanted to get to, but what I'm trying to say is that I've played a pretty good variety of games that can be called tactical RPGs, and I've seen many different ways that this idea of game could be done. So I think I'm now qualified to be able to look at these games. Though with that in mind, I'm not going to be constantly comparing this to other games. That stuff always annoys me. I'm just going to look at this game for what it is, in its own bubble. So, what is it? And why am I looking at it? Well, because I want to. And my real reason will be revealed in a later video. But let's just talk about Voidspire itself. Voidspire Tactics is a 2015 TRPG by Rad Codex. The game takes place in the world of Eral. The player creates their own party, a group of 4 people arriving from a boat and planning on going through customs. However, what they do end up going through is a lot different, as some random gate orb appears and teleports us away to the titular Voidspire, an enigmatic place that has been teleporting places and people from all over the world to it. So now the crew needs to explore the area, find a way out, and end up getting tangled up in the events here and discovering the mystery of why this place exists. The title screen is pretty interesting, very atmospheric with this ominous noise washing over. I like to think of it as the sound that I'd hear coming from the spire itself, or perhaps the large ocean it rests above. So, as expected, starting out is character creation. It's pretty simple. We begin with 4 different races and 3 classes. I decided to make a character out of each race, and stay with the default suggestion of warrior, scout, and 2 scholars. Though honestly, with this game's large focus on class switching, starting classes don't matter too much. But each race does have unique passives to them. Humans have plus 10% experience gain, which might seem like something cool at first but ends up being useless by late game. But I mean honestly, experience in this game is sort of just infinitely relevant just because of how this game is. And humans may arguably be the most fun race to play just because they get to experiment more than others. Scurio are these like fox, otter, cat people. They can act faster than others, having -2 in the stat known as time to act. Fights in this game are on a time order bar. Y'all have probably played a game with something like this, so Scurios usually go first. Razmen are these faceless people. They're pretty cool, and are immune to blind and have higher evasion when flanked. This game has one of those systems where I believe characters get higher accuracy when they're targeting the back of enemies, some sort of benefit. Farim are kinda hard to describe. I can't really just say they're a mix of animals, but I think they have a snake body and like feathers. They get +1 move at the cost of have +1 time to act, which I think is a pretty good sacrifice because being able to move 1 extra space can be huge. I'm glad that these races don't have any benefits that try to direct them towards a certain class or limit them to a playstyle, such as having Scurio or something like that have extra points in flails, or have humans do more damage with ranged weapons. There's nothing like that. I also appreciate the options of changing the character's appearances, though different outfits are locked dependent on class. So with character creation done, we're now in game. Out of battle movement is grid free, and I was surprised at the ability to be able to move objects aside, and just all the interactions with a mouse. The controls and UI are very accessible and intuitive. I think that's the key word. This game is intuitive. Like, I don't think I ever considered something like double click speed in a video game. But there's just so many situations where I wonder if something will work, and I'm glad it does. Like, oh, I can't see my characters, can I just drag items on their portraits to the left? Oh yeah, I can, and that gives them the item. I like how I can open all my party members' inventories at once and drag them around. It can be a bit much at times, but it's still pretty friendly. Maybe there were some ways around clicking and dragging I missed out on, like being able to control click on something to auto-equip it to a character, or to auto-pick it up and just put it on my current leader. Because this game has some pretty heavy inventory management, and at some point I had to just drop my looter shtick and just stop grabbing everything. There's a lot of items, from weapons to craftables and consumables. There are bags to hold all these in, so I got like bags and bags, but I think this just raises the intensity of menu mania. At some point I felt like I was kind of just searching through files in Windows Explorer like I'm working on one of these videos, randomly going into folders just trying to find stuff. But I can't label these bags, so I don't know what has what. This is one of those things that the player can make worse for themselves, I feel, but I don't think it was ever a struggle necessarily. And I do like when games have different inventories per character. It's just when I opened the inventory, I knew crap was about to get a bit exhausting. With the Voidspire itself being a mixture of different lands, hostile people and creatures from all over the world are everywhere, and it's not too long we find ourselves in combat. Combat can be initiated on the overworld, which is where the fights take place, whether it be just walking in or with a cheeky first strike. It's here the player will need to utilize their weapons and class abilities to take out enemy groups, while also managing their own HP and MP. The battles are very typical of what you all would expect, but it's everything around it that makes it interesting. I know I say that line too much in these videos, but these are just the kind of games I love. For example are the weapons, great swords having sweeping ranges, spears having longer range, flails being able to hit diagonals, or bows, which are two-handed weapons with good range, but then there are crossbows, which can be dual-wielded, but they have to be reloaded once I fire them. Everyone can do one action for their turn and one movement, so I could do stuff like fire a ranged attack and then retreat, or use a spell with a longer activation time and then run for the hills, kinda like extending the spell's range. It's nice freedom. Though I do kinda wish I could backpedal at points, like once the player moves for their turn, they can't move back, and often I found myself accidentally moving to where I didn't want to be, but I guess that's my own fault. I'd say the big appeal to the combat and main focus of the game is the classes, or jobs if you all want to sound cooler. Each class comes with different boosts to certain stats, alongside their own list of abilities and passives that can be learned from them. The currency to purchase these is XP, so players level up the classes they use and they get to choose the abilities they want to learn in their order. Abilities can even be upgraded. One of my characters was basically a fire mage the whole game, so I was going for anything fire and I didn't have to learn stuff I didn't want to learn. Every class has unique passives as well, with the player being able to equip 3. There's a lot of cool ones, and finding niche uses for them is great. For example, remember how I said the downside of crossbow type weapons is reloading? Well, I have this passive here that allows me to switch weapons without using up my action for the turn. So I can just swap to another crossbow type weapon and fire with that. My Scurio was packed with guns by the end game, and I never had to worry about reloading until the fight was over. Every once in a while, I'm not sure what determines it, maybe every 100 XP, but the player will receive a star on their class. This is a separate currency that can be used to upgrade a stat permanently, even on class switch, stuff like health, MP, weapon skill, to even movement speed. So how does this all work if I switch my class? Well, if I swap out a class, I can't use the abilities I learned with the previous class until I'm on it again. But I can keep the passives and stat ups, which make exploring classes a good idea. Even if I may not want a certain character to follow down a class path, that class's passives can still benefit and give me new options. Y'all may have noticed the subclass. Good eye. I'll answer that question. Subclasses' only benefit is allowing the player to keep the abilities of that class. Subclasses don't get XP from fights, they're just if the player wants to switch classes without losing the skills they may want to keep. It makes learning new classes not as scary. It doesn't feel like I just downgraded myself to powerless when I can still lean on my past abilities while learning new ones. Speaking of which, unlocking new classes requires having XP in certain other classes, and these are unlocked per character, which just encourages players to try new classes to get new classes. It's always cool seeing what these different jobs have to offer, and with the inclusion of subclasses, this opens the gate on class combinations. Go Mage Warrior for mixed attacking, Brawler Sage for the monk experience. my character's classes changed a lot, but I'll tell y'all how they ended. My human was a mage from the beginning, and I actually stuck with the basic scholar starting class for the whole game. Maybe it's because of the XP bonus humans have, but I super explored the classes with them. Some of them require quite the journey to unlock, but I ended up as a gatekeeper spamming fire gauge, just this massive range. It was awesome. My Fareem was interesting. I wanted to go melee, but there was a ton of options. The brawler was appealing, and I wanted to do throw weapons at first, but actually going to pick them up afterwards is kinda cumbersome, and I did end up losing weapons from this. So I just went with the fisticuff brawler, being able to dual wield and double punch. And in shocking surprise, I ended up becoming an enchanter, giving myself elemental fists or enhancing my party members with elemental weapons, which will come in play for my Scurio. My Rasman was simple, but fun. I needed a healer, so I went for Sage. But then I started using bows, so then my Rasman basically just became a sharpshooter and a crummy healer on the side. The joke was that their healing was so bad that everyone they healed would still die the next turn, but darn it, they believed they were helping. On the other side, they were incredible with a bow. With the far shot skill, I could super snipe people. And then my Scurio. Started off as a drunk, ready to party, containers of beers by the dozens. I had no idea what to do with this character, but the crossbow came to me and things spiraled. They ended up as a mechanic shift cloak. Side note, I love the fact that every class has an outfit the character puts on, and while the mechanic overalls were good, when I switched to shift cloak and they put on the blankie, that was amazing. But anyways, shift cloak has some neat movement, but who cares? The Mechanist. This class is wild, but also my favorite. So they put down these devices, from remote bombs to turrets, and these can be activated with an ability. The turret is already activated, but activating it turns it clockwise. The turret was funny. If I recall correctly, it doesn't scale with any stats, but it's kind of just always strong. I never got tired of walking up to a group of enemies, dropping a turret, watching them all turn towards it like, what the hell? Other than that, the turret doesn't actually hit anyone. I was playing on normal AI level, and they nearly always dodged the thing, which may make it seem useless. Well, the point isn't really to hit people with the turret, more or less control space. They can't go there, and I'm sort of manipulating their paths to fall into my other devices and just be able to camp behind and snipe them. I'm glad it was my Scurio that ended up as the Mechanist too, because the faster time to act allows them to set up faster. I think my favorite part of the class is that it allows me to synergize with my other party members, because activation can also occur from electric attacks. Let me show y'all this. This is the defining clip of this game for me. This will sell a copy. So take this. I have two remote flares on the screen, enemies everywhere. I enchant my bow user with electricity. I use my mage to zap one of the flares, causing an explosion, and then I use my electric bow to safely activate the other flare from afar, blowing up the enemies. It was such a cool moment because my entire team came together to do this plan. It rules. I wish I found more classes that could cause events like this. I will say though that flares and all this other setup stuff kinda fell off, as these tools never scaled with any stats, so by the end game they were kinda useless. So my Scurio more or less ended up as a musket blunderbuss sniper, constantly switching between an arsenal of guns and reloading them after battle. I like how the progression of this game is handled as well. A big objective for the story is finding these stones scattered across the spire to fix up this airship and enable us to flight to get out of here. So in order to find these, we just get this huge area where we can kind of just go wherever we want. And exploring the spire is cool just because of the context of the place, being a mixture of all these varied landscapes. I never know what I'm going to see next. I love the visuals of this game, and the music choices are great. It's mostly free music, and it's great stuff. The Symphonicev music really gives some SNES JRPG vibes, and even a bit of Donkey Kong Country at points. It makes some of the parts of this game surprisingly pretty to just exist in, like the wine lake where all the enemies are asleep. That was so cool. Just realized that Symphonicev I've been listening to Symphonicev's music for a while because a lot of Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch maps, fan-made maps use their songs. And yeah, it's pretty cool to hear them again. I didn't realize how much variety they had with their music. It's pretty cool. Though the song Underclocked by Eric Skiff is a mega bop. The other ways that I can explore using my classes and abilities, I think it's really cool and something that I wish the game expanded on. Being able to use abilities to activate certain things or cool item combos. Like finding places to use the post and rope to explore felt great. And finding ways around things with my own tools. It's low-key immersive sim, and I wished there was more of this. It made me experiment and try things I normally wouldn't. It didn't feel static. Like when I saw plant saplings, my first thought was to learn a water spell and try to water it. It didn't do anything, but I mean give it a few days, plants take time to grow. I guess I kind of just been gushing about this game. I think it's really solid and fun. I actually thought it was pretty short, but it just felt short, because I ended up with like 16 hours, which I guess is short for some people, but the fast progression felt nice. Even if it was a bit tiresome to check my classes for upgrades after every fight, but I was always getting new things, so I guess I can't complain too much. But I guess one thing I can say is that honestly, the plot was kind of weird. Spoilers? So there's this one part where party members can just get straight up dragged to hell. And I don't know if they ever come back or if this is permadeath. I sort of just reloaded my save. That doesn't have anything to do with the plot though. That's not the weird part. Another random thing that I thought was weird is that I could negotiate with enemies before fights. But every time I tried something other than paying them, they just fought me anyways. It was cool I still got XP for being a pacifist though, and that they still sold me their items. That's not the weird part either. And maybe the Ash Cloak description should have been changed, but that's a personal thing on my part. Let me get to the plot. So listen, I spend the game trying to get off the island, and it's a really cool moment to see the army I kept hearing about showing up after I destroy the anti-air, introducing these new powerful weapons. It's a super cool moment. So these guys are just running around killing everyone. Like wow, what a bunch of jerks. This place is going to hell, so let's get out of here. I tried to get this character Olivia to join me on the ship, because she's been an OG since the beginning, but for some reason my party didn't tell her we had a ship, so sorry homie. So we fly out. We're free baby, the game's over. But nah, we then crash into more of these army people, and eventually crashing right back onto the spire. What a slap in the face, we spent all this time just to end up here again, where suddenly these jerks want us to help them take out the main bad guy? Hell no. Y'all just came here, killed all these cool people I was fine with, and tried to kill me on several occasions. I hope there's an alternate storyline where the player can fight these people, because if it wasn't for homie Jin stepping in, it was clapping time. I don't really know what the main bad guy was on about, like I don't even know what he's doing. Yeah, like he seemed chill to me. I had no problems with this dude. I mean, he kind of teleported us here, got a bunch of random people killed, and is messing with powers he probably shouldn't. But I don't have a problem with him, like you do you, buddy. I kind of felt like I joined the villains in killing another villain. But I didn't like the people I joined with. I was mid on Urcast, but these guys, get the hell out. I hope it wasn't a forced thing. Like once again, be lucky I'm cool with you, Jin, because your people are lame. And when we do finally fly off the destroyed spire, I can only wonder if my girl Livia made it out okay. She was an OG! So I guess I didn't entirely care for the plot, but I also only got like 23% of the journals, which after seeing that, I kind of wondered if I was even entitled to make a video on this game. Like, dang, I missed everything. But on the other side of the coin, I was pretty interested in the world, and hearing about the different groups of people around. Like those people that worship that snake statue, Jace, I think, whose king calls himself a god, and nobody wants to argue with him because they don't want to piss him off. The Spire allowed us to hear so much about the world of Eral that I hope the rest of the series will allow us to explore it. And yes, there are other games to this series. I guess final things before we finish the spoiler section is that the player actually unlocks some neat stuff for beating the game. Yeah, I know, unlockables in video games, that's a fucking dying thing nowadays. So it's cool to see it here. First off, we get 2 new playable races, these cool bug dudes with increased physical and magic defense, and these rock people with extra health and a weakness to ice, which isn't a big deal because everyone uses fire in this game anyways. I would love to replay this game to try these new races out, but I mean, we got more games to look at. Another unlockable is like a neat retro visual thing which adjusts the colors of the game. I didn't explore it enough, but I can see the difference. And the final unlockable is an XP multiplier, which is cool. It's nice to just let the devs say, alright, you beat the game, do whatever, and give us the power to replay how we wish. Even if messing with the game flow and XP progression isn't my kind of thing. But yeah, that's Voidspire Tactics. I'm not sure how I'd potentially feel about this game if I played the other future games first, which is why I started with this one, and I enjoyed my time here. I actually say this is a great game for people newer to TRPGs. It's got a lot of difficulty settings, and even on normal difficulty, it's fine with players making mistakes. It's player friendly, has a lot of variety, and is very freeform. Also very generous, with autosaves and quick saves, and it's not that large of a commitment of an RPG. In some ways, people can see this game as obsolete and inferior to the later games, which seem bigger and bound to add on to what's there. But I find an importance in looking at games to the creators as well, and seeing this as their first step. There's a value I find not only in seeing games as they are without outside context, but also the changes and improvements devs learn and make as they repeat similar games, and to be able to play all these games and evaluate them individually and as a whole. As of currently writing this, I haven't played the other games, and my reason for playing them in the first place is still a mystery to y'all, but it will all make sense by the final one. And by then, I want to look back and see if it's true that each game here is special in its own way. What I'm trying to say is that Voidspire Tactics is a solid fun time. So give it a try if that's what any of y'all are looking for. Y'all know where I'm going to put the links, and tell me what y'all think about the game. But as for I gotta fly. So I'm gonna peace out. Catch y'all on the next one. I'm out of here.